One story, one coming king. One thing 2013.
Free conference going on right now. It's online, and there's 25,000 young people there, among other folk, but primarily young people, between 18 to 30, meeting in Kansas City. Hey, we got music over there. No, it's okay. It's okay. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. But you know, we're going to be here on the 31st. We're going to have, I'm going to get a, we're going to go on the internet, and we're going to see some of it right here on the 31st as we bring in some of the new year. 7 o'clock, between 7 and 8, we're going to pray. There's going to be some worship that they have right online here. We'll just kind of do a live with them. This is kind of a strange week. I mean, it's after Christmas. It's not the New Year yet. What do you talk about? I mean, it's sort of a lost week of the year. It's not like have a great New Year yet. Well, it's still in the old year.
Christmas carols are done.
Thank goodness.
We did have a month of Christmas carols.
Amen.
There was an occasion when Jack Nicklaus and Stevie Wonder were having a conversation, and what now?
I said, oh man.
Oh man, they were having a good. They were having a conversation, and all of a sudden Stevie Wonder began talking about his golf game to Jack Nicklaus, and he says, "That's not right. I mean, you golf?" He says, "Oh yeah, I'm an avid golfer. I like golfing." Is that right? Well, how do you know where to hit the ball? He says, my caddy goes to where the middle of the field is, where the fairway is, and he calls out, and I hit the ball directly towards where the voice is. He says, "Does that work? That works?" He says, "Oh yeah, it works really well." Well, what do you do? What do you do when you're on the greens? He says, "Well, he puts his voice down right near where the hole is, and he calls out, and then I putt it into the hole." He says, "You know, I've really gotten quite good, Jack." Jack Nicklaus says, "Is that right?" He says, "Yeah, I play for competition. But I don't do any less than $10,000 per hole."
Oh.
Whoa!
And Jack Nicklaus said, "Is that right?" He says, "What do you think, Jack? Would you like to go and give it a try?" Jack Nicklaus kind of thought about it a little bit, and he says, well, yeah, but I think we could do this. I would like to do this." He says, "Well, when would you like to do it?" "You choose, Jack, any night. Any night we'll play. You choose which night we'll play." That's the key, isn't it?
Right, exactly.
How do you golf when you're blind? Well, we're going to talk about a blind guy here today that Jesus gave sight to. And it's an interesting story, because Jesus asks blind Bartimaeus the same question that he asks James and John. And the question is the question that I want us to answer today. It was some years ago, we'll get to the scripture after this, some years ago, this is a quote that, her name's Eleanor Rhoda Heffer. She's just a little lady, about that big. She died when she was 99. And later in life, for probably the last 10 years, she became blind. And she quoted me this verse some years ago. She said, "The only thing worse than being blind as having sight but no vision. I forgot it. I said, that's a rather profound statement. I said, tell me that again. She quoted that back to me. Having sight but no vision. And if that doesn't embrace a number of people. Let's read the passage together. Let's stand. Let's read the passage. It'll be several slides there, so remain standing. And I'll have to go. Okay. Then they came to Jericho as Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city. A blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." Okay, you may be seated, and then I'll have you stand up for the next one. I've changed my mind. Can I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
No.
Thank you, Robbie. I needed that. How would you like to be called the son of your father? He's like he doesn't even have what's his own personal name? How would you like to be called that? That's your worth. Your worth is what you're attached to. You have no personal worth of your own. Being blind in that day and age, all he could do was beg. That's all he could do. He had a life of it. Don't know the man's story. And as they were going through Jericho, Jericho was rebuilt by the Romans. And it was a very wealthy city at that point. There's actually two Jerichos. There's the old Jericho that was talked about in the Bible, was the first city that was taken over when they came into the new land. Remember, they walked around the walls of Jericho? This is a rebuilt Jericho by the Romans. And this man was on the outskirts of the city. As they were leaving, he heard it was Jesus of Nazareth. "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." It's really a prayer. It's one of the most simplest prayers. And look what the people said to him. When they heard, many rebuked him and told him to be quiet. The people around him just told him to shut up. Be quiet. Don't bug the master. What did he do? He shouted all the more. This guy had something about him. How many of you have an opinion?
Yeah.
It may be different than the crowd around you. It may be a bit different. Some people just don't get you. Some people around you may not understand you. He had his eyes on Jesus. He heard about Jesus. At this point in Jesus' ministry, Jesus had performed miracles. He had done it. He had turned water into wine. Peter's mother-in-law got off her ill bed. Many different things have happened at this point. "Son of David, have mercy on me!" He ramped it up another notch. Look at that last. Jesus stopped. It stopped God in his tracks. How many know that persistent prayer God will listen to. He'll stop God in his tracks. Humble prayer. Notice his prayer. Have mercy. It wasn't, you got to help me. My life has dealt me a bad hand. That's not the prayer. Mercy. I don't deserve anything. I need help. Please. Desperate, humble, persistent prayer. God will stop. God will stop. How long does prayer happen? How long do you have to pray? I was listening online yesterday to Mike Bickle, the International House of Prayer. They've been praying now well over 10 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're in Kansas City. And now they've opened up in the middle of this past year a prayer room that not only is with English, but Chinese, Korean, Spanish, Portuguese, different languages. They got 5 different languages now in there. They're praying 24 hours a day. Different languages now. And when he was talking about when he was 25, he says he is going to call out until God moves in such a way. And at that point when he was 25, he didn't even know what he was praying about. And he says, you know, there's some people that I prayed with back then that are not with me anymore. And he says, you know, just look around, revival hasn't happened yet. He says, I'm praying until Jesus comes. That's what he said. I'm going to pray like this until Jesus comes. Because it's not about this is happening or that's happening or that's not happening. I'm going to pray until Jesus comes. How long do you have to pray? And along the way, for him to be able to pray that way, he had to give up stuff. One of the big things he had to give up when he was 25 years old was this. He talked about the one thing he had to give up was this thing that he says many young people get involved with. They're afraid they're going to miss out. And so they really don't seek God. He said, I had to give up this thought in my head that if I really seek God, I'm going to miss out on things. He says, back when I was 25, I didn't like reading the Bible. I really didn't like praying that much. He says, but now, it's different. Because after 35 years of doing this, he's shifted. Jesus stopped. Father, would you form a prayer in each one of us that will be persistent, that will be humble, that will be desperate. Bring us to the end of ourself. That's when we'll cry out to you. And Jesus says, call him. Tell him to come here. Okay, let's stand. Next one. So they called to the blind man, cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you. Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked him. The blind man said, Rabbi, I want to see. Go, said Jesus. Your faith has healed you. Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. You may be seated. So they say, hey, it's your lucky day. Get on your feet. He's calling you. I suppose he listened to the voice.